Hey everybody, it's James Lamar. I'm back with the third installment of You Think You Know, But You Have No Idea. This will be the episode 3 to wrap up this series that I decided to do. That basically gives you, a foundation or a background of some of the things that I've experienced in my life and things that I've been through and things that I've overcome once again to become the best version of myself, the King James Version. Welcome back to everybody who has already subscribed and watched the other two videos. For those of you who are just joining and just seeing me for the first time, I welcome you as well. Thank you so much for, tuning in to my video. And I'm excited to see what happens in this episode. But yes, I'm back home. I went out today. I did like a adventurous type of day. I drove down to Miami, which is something that I rarely do, only because of the traffic or whatever. So I do like Miami as a place, as a city. But as far as like driving down there, yeah, I'm not too fond of that. Nonetheless, I did go to a botanical garden that I had never been to, and it was nice. It was nice. It was called Fairchild, I believe. And I spent some time in nature, once again, and that's very important to stay grounded. And there's healing in nature. Honestly, there's a lot of healing in being in nature, being outside, being in the sun, being amongst trees, and sometimes being with animals and things of that nature. And so that was really nice. That's my third botanical garden that I've been to since last year. So I'm very fond of them now, and I can't wait to go to more, in different cities and things of that nature. That'll be great. That'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. And solo, I really enjoy spending time with myself. It's very important for me to have that alone time and that time of solitude. Nowadays at 32 years old, I value my alone time more than anything else now. And on the way back, I just, I figured let's do a dessert. I really wanted a cinnamon roll from Cinnabon, but they're so spread out. Like they're not nearby, not anywhere near me, not where I live at. So I was like, okay, we're not gonna do that today because I already did a lot of driving. But I decided to stop to an ice cream parlor. You know what I mean? And I haven't been to one in a long time. If I do get ice cream, I'll probably just go to the grocery store and get me a little pint of Haagen Dazs. Best ice cream ever, Haagen Dazs, but best brand, I should say. But as far as actually going to an ice cream parlor, I hadn't been to one, so I decided to go to what is it called? Cold Stone. Cold Stone. I decided to go to Cold Stone and stop in there, got something, that I hadn't tried, and, sat outside for a second and, just enjoy my own company. It's very important that you enjoy your own company. If you don't enjoy your own company, that there's something that you have to work on, as far as getting there. I understand because I didn't always used to enjoy my own company. I actually didn't. But I have grown to love it. I have grown to love it and appreciate it, and love that time with myself. But yes, piggybacking from episode 2, I left off and I spoke on dating life and things of that nature, and guys that I met and things. And I had stopped it as far as saying that, the third episode would go into the actual relationship that I did have. It was essentially my second relationship in life, my last relationship still, and it was with my ex boyfriend. Um, Basically, I was young. I was 25 at the time. This was back in 2015. This is back in September 2015. And he was 22, if I'm not mistaken, because he was 3 years younger than me. Yeah, so he was younger. And basically, there was a group that was started down here to promote togetherness and love amongst the LGBT community in the South Florida area, like, kind of like Tri-County area and things of that nature. That was started by this guy, named Jakari. And it was a fun time. It was a fun time to be alive, right? And I like the idea and the proposition of what the group stood for, because being that I hadn't grown up with any males around me, I had no brothers. My dad wasn't in the picture, as I discussed um, in the last video. Uh, I always wanted a brother. I literally always wanted a brother, and I felt like this group gave me an opportunity to be able to meet more people like myself. And it's kind of like we have similar interests and different things. So basically, this group was started, and there were different events that we did. There was also a Facebook group that was created in conjunction with the actual, physical group. And it would be for us to post topics and different things of that nature, for people to comment on, chime in, engage and stuff. And basically, I had been posting some statuses, some posts, and this guy just started like commenting, and I would know I started to notice that he would comment on like mostly all the things that I would post. So of course, you start to notice, you like, what's up, kind of, you know what I'm saying? So eventually, this same guy, my ex, he approached me in Messenger. I don't even think it was Messenger at the time. I don't think it was a separate app, but he messaged me on Facebook, and then conversation started from there. That goes, that goes very quickly in a way. We end up meeting shortly thereafter. I think we met for the first time. I think it was September 15th. So it was like right after an event that had happened, like a picnic potluck that same month. Shortly thereafter, I met him in person. I didn't meet him at that event, but we were speaking during that weekend. And basically, we like conversation, we hit it off, and this guy seemed to be really, really into me, like really, really into me. And again, like I wasn't necessarily used to that. I wasn't necessarily used to getting all that attention and getting all that, adoration and the sweet nothings, all that kind of stuff. And he was giving this to me, and it felt good, and I we end up, continuously talking and stuff like that. There were certain red flags that I think, I kind of just brushed aside. I won't say I ignored them, but I feel like maybe I just kind of like let certain stuff go because I didn't find it to be that big of a deal. And then at the same time, again, I was getting all this attention and adoration. Like I felt like that outweighed like anything that seemed kind of like negative or whatever. Mind you, this is still the early stages and stuff. So I wasn't going to make it official or ask to be, in a relationship or anything like that, or ask for him to be my boyfriend until like 3 months or so. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's something funny about, you know, in the world, it feels like 90 days is like a standard for a lot of things. So I felt like in regard to, you know, meeting him and us deciding to actually make it exclusive, I was gonna give it at least 90 days. You know what I'm saying? So, but he beat me to the punch. You know, as of November, he went ahead and asked me if, you know, if I would be his boyfriend or whatever. And then I thought about it and I was like, okay, well, you know, things are going well, you know, overall. And there's nothing really stopping me from making that decision. And so, like, why not? You know what I'm saying? So basically, you know, I think as of November 7th or something like that, we became like official of like 2015. You know, time goes by, things are well. Like, again, like in the beginning, it's like what the honeymoon stage for the most part. You know what I mean? So I'm spending time with him. I'm going down to North Miami to spend time with him at his dorm room at the college that he was, you know, studying at. And, you know, we're spending a lot of time together. We're going to events together and stuff like that. I'm starting to introduce him to friends. I'm starting to introduce him to family. You know, it's becoming a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like like the relationship was progressing, you know, and basically, you know, fast forward, like the first 6 months go by like that, I feel. And he has a graduation ceremony, you know, and then thereafter, he was still going to have to come back to the school to do like one more course, which wasn't available until after the summer. So at this point in time, we're in a relationship. Sorry about that noise. At this point in time, we're in a relationship, and he's from another city in Florida. So normally he would just go back home and then come back down once the new semester started. But now that we're in a relationship, it's like, it's still kind of, you know, recent. It's within our first year of, you know, knowing each other and stuff like that. And, you know, I don't know what that looks like as far as like long distance or whatever. You know, I necessarily wasn't too fond of the idea of it being like long distance, even if it was for like, you know, a short length of time, just because of how fresh everything was. I wanted to continue to get to know, you know him and things. And, you know, I was like, so what are you gonna do? Are you going to try to get your own place down here? What, like, are you going back home? Like, what are you planning on doing? He really wasn't giving me answers and stuff like that. And I really felt like the whole time he was looking for me to ask him, you know, whether he could stay with me or whatever. Mind you, at the time, my grandmother and I are are living at the duplex that we were staying at or whatever. And so basically, although I took care of like over half of the bills and everything like that, and I pretty much was the head of household, it still was my grandmother's place. So she mattered, you know what I mean? And I finally asked him, I was like, listen, are you trying to stay here or whatever? Like, do you want to stay here? Well, yeah, like, I'm just like, well, speak up, say something. Like, why do I have to like pull it out of you or whatever? Like, that's frustrating to me when people don't really like speak up for themselves, or they look for you to, you know, pry until you get like a response out of them. It's like, it's really frustrating. But, you know, he said yes to my question. And so I said, okay, well, what I'll have to do, I'll have to ask my grandmother, because she has to be okay with it or whatever. If not, you know, I don't know. So I asked my grandmother. My grandmother never really gave me like a yes or a no. Her response was, her response was, well, what y'all doing ain't right or whatever. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, so the day came where he had to get out of his dorm and stuff like that. I just got his stuff, brought it back. He had already been to the house a few times and stuff, stayed the night a few times. But this was different. This was going to be like you living with me, you living with us. And, I just brought his stuff in and put it in the spare room or whatever. And, she never really said, my grandmother never really opposed it or said anything else about it. I think she just was like, I think because of her love for me, which is the beautiful thing, right? Even though her view of my sexuality or whatever, I don't know if you would say she didn't agree with it, which, whatever. But regardless, like she loved me the same. And, she decided to love me the same because when I first told her back when I was 22, almost 23, you know, she said that she was hurt, and that really, really kind of like was tough on me. That was really tough on me. I had a hard time, dealing with that in that moment because her acceptance or her approval meant so much to me. This again, guys, this is essentially like my mother. This is who raised me from 3 days old. So I valued her. I valued her opinion, greatly, and so, but she didn't. Again, she didn't end up saying anything too much. And at that point in time, he was living with us. All right, great. Again, there were some red flags in those months and stuff like that. But again, I continued to kind of like, you know, feel like the good outweigh the bad. But I was working, right? I was working, and he wasn't, right? Because he was just going to school at some point in time. So, basically I'd go to work and then he'd be home. And, I'd ask like, months and months go by. And I asked, have you applied? Like, are you applying in any positions and stuff like that, so on and so forth. Oh yeah, da 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 da. And I'd be at work, be like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I just woke up, so on and so forth. Oh, I just got some, I just made me something to eat, stuff, so on and so forth. I would go to Walmart. I would go like pick up at least like five ready to go meals, microwavable stuff, whatever it may look like, to make sure that he ate while sorry, while I was at work and stuff. And making sure that he's good. That's what I always do with the people who I love and care about. I make sure that they're good, or I did my best to, you know, and even when I would get off, like when I was stopping to a restaurant for dinner or something like that, of course, like this is my boyfriend, so of course I'm picking him up something as well. I couldn't imagine like getting myself something and, not getting him anything. So when it came to food, when it came to going out, to these events and these going out to eat and different things, going to clubs, going to bars and stuff like that, I was always footing the bill, like each and every time, because this person didn't have any money, they weren't working. And and um I started to get frustrated with that, because I felt like now it's kind of like I was already like struggling a little bit, with some things, with, keeping afloat financially and stuff like that. And now I feel as though like I already had this responsibility on my shoulders of making sure that me and my grandmother were good, but now I add on a third person. So I feel like in a way, yes, my grandmother had her, income, social security and different things, volunteer work, whatever. But, for the most part, like I said, I had the major bills of the household and I paid over half of the rent and things of that nature. So I feel like I'm taking care of like three people, including myself, off of like one income. And that started to like bother me, not my grandmother, but he's like, that started to bother me with him, of course, because I'm like, I'm a man, you're a man too. Like my thing is like, I'm not just gonna be like out here just working and like, I got a whole dude that lives with me rent free, don't pay bills or anything, and literally like is skating by right, at this moment, And so eventually I got frustrated and I told him, I said, every time I talk to you, when I ask what you're doing, while I'm at work and while you at home, it's always, oh, I'm doing this, oh, I'm doing that. I said, I don't ever hear any updates about you applying for a position or you done called this job or you done went out here to see if you could find this job or whatever. Oh, I do. I do be applying, but it's something like, I don't want to say that all the time because I don't want to make it sound redundant or repetitive. I'm paraphrasing, but of course, yeah, but what? You know what I'm saying? Like, but he knew when I got to that point that I got frustrated and like he finally got a job. But you're talking about probably like 8 months after 8, 9 months after you've been living with me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like rent free. I may have gotten the month wrong, but it was a long time, the month time frame wrong, but it was a long time. It was a long time, just period. And I started to feel, somewhat used. You get what I'm saying? So that wasn't cool to me. And he finally gets a job, Um, but again, like because of the type of person that I am, like if you're in my life, I'm going to pour into you. I don't know any other way. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm going to pour into you just because if you're someone who I care about and love and am fond of, I'm going to, you're going to benefit from me being in your life, period. Like that's just the bottom line. I feel as though everybody's lives who I've been a part of, friend wise, family, whatever, they have benefited in some type of way, whether that be from my energy, whether that be from my kindness, um, you know, my giving heart, whatever that may look like, you're going to benefit from me being around. So when it came down to it, like I was doing everything. I was making sure that I was pouring into my ex so much. When it came down to him going back to school or whatever, for that last course, when the fall came of 2016, I was driving him all the way to North Miami from Fort Lauderdale. So that's, we all know that's a bop. Um, I was driving him from Fort Lauderdale to North Miami. I'd have to get up even an hour earlier so that we can go through that Miami traffic, drop him off in North Miami. I was working at Hollandale Beach at the time, so I would leave North Miami. Mind you, I was going past work to go drop him off for class. And then I have to drive back up to go to my job in Hollandale Beach. So much traffic, so much gas, so much time. And then I get off and then go back south, go pick him up, then finally get him maybe stop to get something to eat on the way home, depending on maybe if there was food or something already at the house. And then finally, end back in Fort Lauderdale. It was a lot. And so from travel to upkeep to haircuts to food to washing clothes, it just like he had it made. Let's just say he had it made because I made it that way. My dumb ass. But I cared. I loved. I was growing. I had love for him and stuff like that. So I cared, and this is my first boyfriend. You know what I'm saying? So, it's certain things you like. You don't know how it's supposed to look and whatever, but I just gave a lot. I gave a lot to this man, and basically it comes down to the point where he gets his, like I said, he got his job, and he finally starts like helping with things, and now I'm not having to foot all the bills when we go out, when we go out to eat and stuff like that. So that felt good. And I got gifts for Christmas and birthday, and it started to feel, somewhat reciprocal. So I was happy about that because it had been too long, for how it had been. Also, he didn't know how to drive, so I never had a break when it came down to driving, or like, oh, can you drive now, or whatever. And then when I tried to teach, then it was just like they were too scared. And I was like, we need to look into some driving courses and stuff like that for you to get your license and stuff because this is exhausting. You know what I mean? Basically, yeah. So fast forward to 2017 now. 2017. Here's the thing. We have both talked about like our desire to move to LA or whatever. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something in entertainment out there. And it had been a goal of mine, a dream of mine for quite some time, like at least like in my early 20s, it definitely became like a big dream of mine. And then with him, he was, in the his studies were in the fashion industry, so it's like, of course, you would want to go out to LA to, acquire more education and be somewhat closer to connects and contacts and things of that nature, as far as building your career and stuff like that once you gain your education and whatnot. So it just was like, oh my gosh, like this is kind of like perfect because we both want to move there. So, it is what it is. At this point in time, my grandmother had been, she had been on a waiting list that I had put her on for like senior citizen, like based housing. Not a home or anything like that, but like literally seniors apartments for senior citizens. And she had been on this list for like 4 years. And they had finally called and told her that, or told me that, there was an apartment that was going to be opening up soon. And, she need to be ready to occupy it, kind of like closer to the summer or whatever. We got a call, I think maybe in May of 2017 saying that the unit was ready. So at this point in time now, we need to go ahead and move my grandmother into her 1-1 apartment. It's something that I was very happy about for her because she had always said that she had never lived alone just in her life period, and that used to be a desire of hers. She used to say it when she was kind of upset, with us, the grandkids. I'm gonna get my own place and I'm a da 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 da. She used to say stuff like that, but that never ended up happening. But up until 2017, So it worked out, thankfully, and now I'm having to move out as well. So I moved into my mom's like house, apartment, her and my stepdad, for like 3 months prior to moving to LA myself. So let me backtrack for a second. My ex had already started to apply to some schools as we knew all of this was taking place and was to happen and stuff like that. My ex had already started to applying to some fashion schools out in LA, and he had gotten approved for one of the schools, and but they said that the start date was, I think, April or something like that. So mind you, I wasn't going to be able to leave until until I got things in order, all my I's dotted and T's crossed, stuff like that. So I wasn't necessarily in the space to move just yet, but because he had applied and stuff, I'm like, I think you should go. Like I was like encouraging him to go or whatever. So, he can get a head start. And I was like, I'll join you, I'll join you in some months or whatever, and we'll be fine. So he ended up moving and heading over there at the end of March, I think he left. And then for him to start school in April, excuse me. And I had gone ahead and acquired a contract job and it was a contract position for 6 months. And I said, you know what, this is perfect. So because I got this job, the job that I was at before that, I hated that shit. So I'm just like, baby, this works because it's not like they looking for me to be there, full time or like beyond the contract or whatever time frame. So I was like, because this is a contract for 6 months, this is perfect. It started in April. And so I was like, I calculated 6 months from that. That's October, right? So October, I said, I'm going to make my like move date around that time frame. You know what I'm saying? So so he had gone ahead and moved. We had moved my grandmother into her apartment. I was staying with my mom for the first 3 months. For not the first 3 months, but for 3 months, prior to me moving out of state. And, as of October 13th, and I thought that was kind of, funny because I ended up leaving Friday the 13th. But I left on Friday the 13th and I moved out to LA. And, we had been, he had stayed certain living accommodations. He had stayed with a roommate that didn't work out at some point in time. And then he had gotten into another situation, another apartment. That apartment was going well, but at this point in time, because I'm moving out there, now we need to get a place together. So I needed him to, facilitate that because he was the one out there, physically to be able to look at apartments and see different things. So, we ended up finding some spot. I moved out there, so by the time that I was coming out there, the apartment was solidified. We moving there, now at the time I don't have a job. So prior to me leaving, I'm not that type of bitch. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that type of nigga, to be like not working. I don't know what it is not to work. Let me be clear about it. I've worked since I was 15 years old. So, and the longest that I had been out of work prior to then was like, I think it was like a month or whatever. So yeah, I don't know what that is. So I had already been applying to positions and, I had two interviews set up with two different staffing agencies. That Monday, I moved out of there Friday, and then that Monday I had those things set in place. But I had been applying rigorously, and just those things, those interviews with those staffing agencies didn't work out at the moment. I didn't really hear back. The jobs that I was applying for, I didn't really hear back from them. and I was trying to stay within my same field, which was the legal field that I had been in for some years, and it just wasn't working out. So when I first moved out there, I struggled to get a job at first. But keep in mind, I hear people struggle for a long time, like without work or employment, So I'm thankful that it was only like a month and a half to 2 months, I think. I think it was a month and a half. I think it was a month and a half. And so it wasn't even that long. But now at this point in time, he's getting like net checks and stuff from school or whatever. So, keep in mind this whole time where this person didn't pay anything rent wise and stuff like that. My goodness, it's 35 minutes already. This person didn't pay anything rent wise and things of that nature. And, remember I was doing all that kind of stuff, rides, going out, food, so on and so forth, just making sure that the person was taken care of in the time that they didn't have it going on. So now that you have it going on, now that you have some money and some finances, of course, like the shoe is on the other foot. So at this point in time, I'm looking for you to come through for me. I'm looking for you to come through for me. I think you paid the rent once or twice all by yourself. Mind you, we're in LA, so it's pricey, and I get it. But like you had to, you were getting upset with me because I hadn't yet acquired a job, and I'm just like, you see me trying, like you see, like I'm not the dude to just sit and just be like, if once he left, like for school or whatever, it's not like I was just sitting home and watching TV and eating snacks and then he would come back and that's what he would see. Not like what I saw, right? So it's like, it's crazy to me because, you see me trying. Like I'm the type, I had literally printed out resumes because the legal shit wasn't working out. So I also had a customer service resume or whatever based on my customer service experience. And I literally like printed out, copies of my resume. I got dressed up. I went to the fucking mall. To go around to stores and actually like speak to people and like, do my best to, give out my resume and speak with management and stuff like that. That's how adamant I am about like seeking employment if I don't have any employment. You know what I mean? There was like LA Live was nearby, so I had went over there, went to the movie theater there, passing out resume, asking to speak to management, all that kind of stuff. Like I was going to job fairs and stuff. And fortunately, I had acquired a job at Verizon as a, guest services or whatever. Not, I won't even say guest services, but it was a greeter for the holiday season. So it was a position from like the end of November to the end of December or whatever. So, I had acquired that, but then once that ended, I still needed to get something else. So I guess he had gotten, and I had, at this point in time, I started paying like my half of the rent and shit like that. And I guess that he felt some type of way. So mind you, I'm back out looking for work again. And that day I had gotten up really early. I had gone to like Central Casting because I was trying to see if I can get money as an extra, background actor or whatever. So I had gotten up really early, going out to wherever they're located to get signed up for that. And then I got an email from Indeed talking about, this job fair for a dispensary or whatever. So I was like, oh, hell yeah. Like I definitely gotta go over there or whatever after I go to this because I'm on the grind. Like I don't play. Like, we gonna make some shit happen. We gonna make some shit shake. So, I'm at Central Casting or whatever, and then I see this status on Facebook from him that says he feels so hurt, used, and upset or something of that nature. So I'm like messaging him, texting him, seeing what's going on, what's wrong, whatever. Because when I left that morning, he was fine, or we were fine. And so I thought. But meanwhile, like he's like dancing around the issue. So I'm just kind of like, is there something that happened with school? Because I know he had some couple group projects and he was frustrated with the people at times. So I'm thinking they got something to do with school. And then I was like, wait a minute. Wait, are you saying this about me? then I stopped getting responses, right? So I'm like, and he responded after that. So I'm feeling some type of way because I was like, why would you even put something up about our relationship on Facebook? Like, I don't move in that way. I don't move in that manner. Like, that's not cool. And everybody knows that we're together. So it's like, if you put some shit up like that, that's very vague and ambiguous, I feel like people are going to suspect or assume that it's in relation to his boyfriend, which is myself. You know what I mean? And so I was like, I don't know what's going on, but whatever. Like, we had started arguing and stuff like that. Like, as soon as I got over there, within the first couple of months, it's like arguments and shit, and again, throughout our relationship, there were many times that we had arguments and times that we didn't see eye to eye. And, it just felt very overbearing. And I felt like at times I felt suffocated, by this relationship. And it was a lot or whatever. And I go ahead and go to the job fair for the dispensary. The job fair for the dispensary works out. I actually get hired on the spot. They had like group interviews, so they said basically like, if your hand is raised, please walk that way. Unfortunately, those were the people who didn't get the job, and everybody else, they got the job. And you were said that you could start working immediately and stuff like that. Thank you, God. Thank you, universe. Thank you, angels. Thank you, ancestors. I appreciate it. Thank you. Now I got me a job, so it felt good. And it's like on the same day that this nigga is putting this shit up on a public platform about our relationship, I got a fucking job, because that's who I am. Like, I'm a go-getter. Like, I've been this way, especially based on the shit that I've, where I come from. You know what I mean? I've always been adamant about creating a certain life for myself and striving for more and striving for better. You know what I'm saying? And basically, I see him later that day. He doesn't speak. He doesn't say anything. Actually, when I first got home from that day, he wasn't home. And then, I had gotten him food like regularly, just because that's me. And he actually did come in that night, but he came in for a second and then left. So I didn't understand what was happening. Eventually, I was so tired from the day because it had been such a long day that, eventually I just was like, I showered and I went to bed. I wake up the next morning, I think, and he's in the bathroom. So I'm not sure what's happening or what's going on. And then I think eventually he goes downstairs or something like that and sits in the lobby. So I come, I'm texting him like, hey, I don't know where you're at, but we need to talk or whatever, because at this point in time, I'm kind of like over it, I'm kind of over all of the like arguments and all of the pettiness. And, he always has a problem. It's always something that's wrong. And then say if I feel like there's something wrong, the energy is off. So I'm asking, hey, what's wrong? What's wrong? Oh, nothing. But it's written all over your fucking face that something's wrong. But when I ask you, you say nothing. You know how frustrating that shit is? You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, it got to a point where it's almost like, can we have a good day? Can we just have a good day? You know what I'm saying? Because it just always was something. And it became so frustrating. And I was talking to my best friend, and I was like, girl, I think I'm done. It's too much. So he was like, no, don't do that. Like, try to talk with him, whatever, XYZ. So eventually I make it down to the lobby where he is, and we speak. And I was like, hey, I don't know what's happening, but that, whatever you wrote, it wasn't cool, whatever, XYZ. He's like, oh, it's not going to work. And I was like, what's not going to work? And he was like, because I had mentioned something about, I understand, like, maybe you feel some type of way, but we still need to talk about, how bills are going to get paid, the rent, XYZ, so on and so forth. And he's like, oh, this ain't gonna work. And I was like, what's not gonna work? He like, you living here. Like, what do you mean? Like, my dude, my name is on the lease as well. Like, what are you talking about? And then he says, oh, well, yeah, this ain't gonna work. You gotta go. I gotta go. I'm telling this dude, I'm not going anywhere. Like, this is my apartment as well. We need to figure out how we're going to go about this, still living together and stuff like that. And then so basically in that conversation, I was very hurt because first of all, I saw like, I felt like his eyes turned like pitch black. I don't know. It was like the weirdest thing. Like, I felt like I didn't recognize who I was talking to. It felt like, I don't know, it felt like I was talking to something that was evil. I mean, I really did. Like, I just was like, what is this switch up? You know what I'm saying? And it was just so nasty, so nasty and so rude. So nasty and so a Real Housewives of Atlanta reference. Um, but it was a lot. Like, it was like, huh? And so I was like, this whole time I've supported you and I've been there for you and whatever. And the moment that the shoe gets placed on the other foot, you bail out, like, you make it seem like I'm not even trying and that I don't use you. I've used you. What? I think it's the opposite way around. Like, huh? Like, who does that? And it was very frustrating. And at the end of the day, basically, he broke up with me in that moment. Leave it up to him. He'll say that he didn't. But that's what narcissists do. They make you question your own reality, and they narrate stories to be of their benefit. But what's telling someone that this isn't going to work and that they need to move out? That's essentially breaking up with them, correct? Exactly. So my whole thing is, wow, like, this is crazy. But I also said that I wasn't going anywhere. So basically we had to end up, living in the same household. We're not together. A title isn't on us anymore. And it's frustrating because it's like, who wants to be in that type of energy and stuff like that? So make a long story short, time goes by, and he eventually like apologizes, writes me this whole letter, XYZ, I'm so sorry, da 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 da, XYZ. I wasn't trying to hit none of that shit, to be honest, because I just was really so hurt because I had poured into and gave so much of myself for this person and for the benefit of us, not ever thinking about me solo, him solo, but thinking of us as a unit. And I really didn't appreciate literally the moment that things shift and that you have the opportunity to take care of things while I get my shit together or whatever. And you spite me for it. But I didn't spite you for the long time that I was there for you and that I was still there for you. Still. Because again, you can't drive, so who driving us around all the time? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to hear the shit. It becomes like March, and eventually, like, you know, he's done a lot of begging and pleading, and I'm kind of like, okay, we can try the relationship again or whatever, but I'm letting you know that shit really hurt me. Like, that was not cool. That was not cool, and I don't appreciate that. And basically, he states that you know, he was like, I'm sorry, XYZ. Child, the arguments and the dull days start again. It didn't take too much longer after that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm sick of this shit. Like, I'm so tired of this shit. I had been speaking to this girl at work. She was telling me that the job had a benefit where, mind you, at this point in time now, I'm working at Verizon as a sales representative because I had wanted to see if I could be successful at that, and an opportunity presented itself. And so I'm working there. It's stressful as fuck working there. So I got a lot going on, period. But she's like, the job has an EAP benefit where you can do therapy. And one of the therapy things is couples therapy. So I was like, you know what? Let me look into that, you know, give it a try, because at this point in time, now this is 2018 now. So we're approaching like 3 years of, like, you know, knowing each other and being around each other and stuff like that. That's a lot of time and energy, you know, invested. And I'm not looking to just throw this shit away. You know, I'm literally doing my best to try to make this shit work. And so I look into that, and we do that. And he didn't seem, you know, too excited about the idea, but I was like, listen, I feel like we need to try this, because if this doesn't work, then I don't know what will. We went to one session, and it was certain things that were being asked by the therapist. One of the things was, you know, I had said something along the lines of, you know, if I'm with you, or if I care about you, whatever, I make sure that you straight. I'm always making sure that you good. If I'm good, I'm making sure that you good, whatever. His response to that was something, I think the therapist asked him, he was like, so how do you feel about what he just said? I never asked him to do none of that. Oh, wow. Okay, so that's your response to all of the shit that I've done did for you. And then there was something else that was said, you know, and he was saying, well, at the end of the day, he always gonna make sure that he good, you know. And it just came, the tone of it was very like selfish and self-centered, when meanwhile everything that I was saying, it had to do with us as a unit, not us individually, you know, necessarily. And I'm just like, okay. So the guy was like, oh, call him, you know, for the second session, whatever. Or he reached out to me again for a second session. I was like, that won't be needed. The whole car ride was quiet and weird, and I just was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this relationship. I'm done. And yeah, that was that. And I mean, yeah, we had to live with each other thereafter or whatever, but because we had to finish out the lease. The lease wasn't up until September, and this was now like May. So of course there was that gray area, you know, and you know, we still did things as though we were a couple, but there was no title on it or whatever. I literally said like I'm not, we can't ever be in a relationship again. Like that's where my mind was at the time. Like I was like, I'm good. I'm good. I don't want to deal with this shit. You know what I'm saying? It's just been too much, and too much has been done and said, and I just don't have it in me anymore. You know what I mean? And then come time September, I had a decision to make whether I was going to still try to stay in LA and get my own place. And own place in LA, that's, child, based off of what I was making, that wouldn't have been able to happen. I was looking into getting a room or somewhere, renting a room somewhere, which was almost like as pricey, you know, and that just situations weren't working out with that. I wasn't happy with the job that I had gotten at the time. And at the end of the day, I just decided, you know what, James, I don't know what's next. I don't know what's the next step. But right now, you need to go back home. You need to move back home and leave this behind because this is a wrap. You know what I mean? And literally up until the last moment, I helped him out, moving his things from our apartment to where he was going to be staying at now, and I try to give him a hug, and it's almost like he wanted to give me a half hug and like almost like, okay, let's just get this over. I was like, really, that's what you want to do? Like my whole thing is like, you never know when the last time you may see someone. So you have to be conscious about how you leave things with people. And that was my whole thing. Like, you can't, this is how you're going to leave our last, you don't even know this might be the last interaction we may have, like, in person. Like, but whatever. I just like, whatever. Like, I'm over this shit. End up moving back home and figuring out my life from there. I'm going to end this video here because it has gotten long. This has gotten to almost an hour. But thank you guys again for taking time out your day to listen to me, to hear another portion of my life. That all this stuff with my ex, it's not done. I thought I was going to be able to complete it within this video, part 3, but I am ending the you think you know, but you have no idea at this juncture. The next video will just, it'll be titled differently, of course, and it will, piggyback off of this video in relation to how things subsequently ended with my ex, because it doesn't end necessarily there, unfortunately. But yes, thank you guys. If you could please like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and share the video if you don't mind. It would be very helpful. Again, I'm fairly new to YouTube once again, and it'll help with the algorithm and everything and getting my videos and my messages out there. But thank you so much again, and tune in for my next video. All right, you guys, much love. Wishing y'all happiness, peace, and success. Bye-bye.